Somewhere in the Arctic Ocean right now, there is an animal swimming slowly beneath the ice that was already alive before the telephone was invented, before the light bulb, before the Civil War ended. It is still alive today. It has no idea any of that happened, and yet its body has been quietly recording the passage of time for over 2 centuries. You are about to find out how scientists proved it, and what it means for the way you think about aging itself. For most of history, nobody believed a mammal could live that long. Mammals age fast, hearts wear out, cells stop dividing cleanly. Even the longest-lived land mammals top out around a century, and that's rare. So, when a strange claim started circulating among Arctic whalers in the 1990s, most scientists assumed it was folklore. But it wasn't folklore. It was something stranger than that. It was true. The animal is the bowhead whale. It lives only in the frigid waters of the Arctic and near Arctic, under thick sea ice, in some of the coldest, darkest ocean on the planet. And for a long time, nobody had any real way to know how old one actually was. Whales don't have birth certificates. They don't have rings like a tree. Or so everyone thought. The breakthrough came from an unlikely place: old harpoon tips. In the late 1990s, indigenous whaling communities in Alaska began finding centuries-old stone and ivory harpoon points embedded in the blubber of freshly hunted bowhead whales. Not old whales that had been struck decades ago and survived. Whales struck by weapons that hadn't been manufactured in over 100 years. One whale was found with an explosive harpoon fragment lodged near its neck, a design that had gone out of use around 1880. That whale was alive in 2007. This is where a biologist named J.C. George enters the story. George worked with the Alaska Department of Wildlife Management and spent years studying bowhead whales alongside native whaling crews who had long suspected these animals lived far longer than Western science assumed. George didn't just take the harpoon evidence at face value. He needed a way to actually measure a whale's true age, something more precise than an old weapon fragment. So he turned to a chemist. That chemist was Jeffrey Beda, at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. Beda had developed a technique called aspartic acid racemization dating. And it sounds complicated, but the idea underneath it is almost beautiful. Inside the lens of your eye, there's a protein that forms before you're born and then never turns over again for the rest of your life. It just sits there. And very, very slowly over decades, the molecules inside that protein flip their shape. Left becomes right. Scientists can measure exactly how much of that flipping has happened. And because it happens at a fixed glacial pace, it works like a chemical clock frozen inside the eye. When George and Bada applied this method to bowhead whale eye lenses, the results were almost too strange to believe at first. Some whales came back at 90 years old, some at 135. And then one specimen, a whale harvested near Barrow, Alaska, came back at an estimated 211 years old. Feel that number for a second, 211 years. If that whale had a birthday, it would have been born, while wooden sailing ships still ruled the seas, decades before anyone had heard the words internal combustion engine. Let's put that number somewhere you can actually feel it, because a number that large stops meaning anything on its own. Imagine your own life, 70, maybe 80 years, stretched out like a single lap around a trek. Now imagine that same lap run almost 3 times over, back to back to back, by one continuous unbroken life. No new body, no new heart, the same one, just aging at a pace that seems to have almost forgotten how. So here's the question that actually matters. Why? Why does a bowhead whale's body seem to resist the thing that breaks down every other mammal on Earth? Part of the answer is size and cold, but not in the way you'd expect. Bigger animals tend to live longer than small ones generally, because they have slower metabolisms relative to their mass, and slower metabolism usually means slower cellular damage. Bowheads are enormous, sometimes over 60 tons, and they live in freezing water that would kill you in minutes. But size alone doesn't explain a whale living 3 times longer than an elephant. Something else is happening inside its cells. In 2015, a team led by João Pedro de Magalhães a biologist at the University of Liverpool who studies the genetics of aging, sequenced the full bowhead whale genome specifically to hunt for this answer. What they found, published in the journal Cell Reports, were mutations in genes tied directly to DNA repair and cancer resistance. Genes that in most mammals slowly accumulate damage every time a cell divides. In the bowhead, some of these genes appear to have been rewritten by evolution into a more error-resistant version. Cells that copy themselves for 2 centuries need a repair system that almost never makes a mistake, because a single accumulated error, repeated across millions of cell divisions over 200 years, should statistically doom the animal to cancer long before old age even becomes a concern. And yet, bowhead whales appear to get cancer at strikingly low rates for an animal that large and that long-lived. Think about what that actually implies. Every one of your cells divides constantly, replacing skin, replacing gut lining, replacing blood cells, and every single division carries a small risk of copying a mistake into your DNA. Over 80 years, that risk adds up. Is part of why cancer becomes more common as you age. A bowhead whale's cells are doing that same division, that same risky copying process for a period of time nearly 3 times as long as your entire life, and its repair machinery appears built to catch nearly all of it. There's a strange, quiet stillness to this fact once you sit with it. Somewhere under the Arctic ice, right now, there could be a whale alive that was already an adult before radio existed, before anyone had flown in an airplane, before Darwin published on the origin of species. That same whale might still be alive in 50 more years, still repairing its own DNA one dividing cell at a time, indifferent to the fact that it has quietly outlived nearly every human institution built during its lifetime. And this is where the story stops being just about a whale and starts being about you. Because the fascination isn't really about the number 211. It's about what that number does to your sense of what a body is even allowed to do. You've probably absorbed, without ever deciding to, an assumption that aging is a fixed countdown, the same for every living thing, ticking at one universal rate. The bowhead whale breaks that assumption completely. It proves that the speed of aging isn't a law of biology, it's a setting. And if one mammal, one warm-blooded, cell-dividing, DNA-copying creature, not so different from you at the molecular level, can turn that setting down this far, then the rate your own body ages at isn't as fixed as it feels. Researchers studying bowhead whale DNA repair genes aren't doing it out of pure curiosity about whales. They're doing it because those same genes exist, in weaker form, in you. The hope, quietly driving labs from Liverpool to La Jolla, is that understanding how a whale's cells refuse to accumulate damage might eventually reveal something about slowing that same damage in a human cell. So tonight, when you notice the ordinary evidence of time passing, a new line on your hand, a photo from 10 years ago, think about this. Somewhere under 200 feet of Arctic ice, moving slowly through water just above freezing, there is a whale that was already alive the last time humanity didn't have an answer for how old it really was.